Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
The Dallas Cowboys finally signed a player and proved that they at least understood that they could do that. So why haven't they done more? Also, the Titans' shopping spree continues. What does Calvin Ridley bring to the Tennessee offense? And the Eagles are the big winners in NFL free agency so far. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. New customers join today and you'll get $200 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started.
I'm Peter Bukowski, starting your day with the can't-miss stories and biggest debates in sports. You're Locked On Sports Today.
Searching all major sports. Found.
Let's start with the biggest story.
As the legal tampering period came and went, the league opened on Wednesday. Cowboys fans were the poke stick meme, like do something, Cowboys, do something. And they finally did something. They signed linebacker Eric Kendricks, reuniting him with Mike Zimmer in Dallas, new defensive coordinator. We are never doing the poke stick meme to Marcus Mosher. He is always doing something Locked On Cowboys. And Marcus, even with this addition with Eric Kendricks, where are Cowboys fans right now? Because if we go by Twitter, and I know that's a dangerous game, they seem to be pretty disappointed right now with how this team is handling the free agent period.
Wait, Twitter or free agency just started on Wednesday, right? Like that's the first time you could sign players to deals, right? I don't know why everybody was getting so upset. Yeah, I mean, listen, this is expected. This is what the Cowboys do in free agency. They do nothing, and it's generally been a pretty good plan because if you look at what
Mike McCarthy feels right at home. All those years with Ted Thompson in Green Bay, like he was like, yeah, we don't worry about that.
No, of course not. So the Cowboys' general philosophy is to draft players, develop them, sign them, and then just don't dabble in free agency until the end of the week or the second week. And look, that's been a pretty good plan for them. They've won 12 games in each of the last 3 years. But I think after the way the season ended this year, which we're not going to talk about,
I got time.
That's all right. We're rushed a little bit. I think people wanted to see the Cowboys go out and be aggressive because Jerry Jones said they were going to be all in. It's just not what they do.
So then if you're Jerry Jones, why say we're going to be all in if you're not actually going to go out and do something? And I'm not even advocating doing anything. I'm just saying, like, from a messaging standpoint, this is how fan bases just get. All fan bases, even Packer fans under Ted Thompson, they were like, come on, dude, even though every year we knew he's not going to do anything.
Trying to decipher what Jerry Jones says can be a really dangerous game. Just to say that. When he said all in, the way that I took that is this is a make or break year for Mike McCarthy, who is in the last year of his deal, Dak Prescott, who is in the last year of his deal, Mike Zimmer, who signed a 1-year contract. To me, it's like, hey, show me that you're worth another deal. And that not necessarily we're all in, we're spending all of our future assets for this season. I think it was more a shot at the players and the coaches currently on the team.
Okay, so then they get Eric Kendricks. I don't think we need to spend a ton of time on that one, but where do you see them going from here? If they're gonna go into second wave, third wave free agency, where do you see them being able to find some value here?
Yeah, so the Cowboys generally like to try to fill holes. That way they can go to the draft and try to draft the best player available. So if you're looking at their roster right now, I think they need another defensive end. They lost Dorrance Armstrong and Dante Fowler to the Washington Commanders, and then a running back. They lost Tony Pollard to the Tennessee Titans. The running back market is pretty dried up right now, so maybe they look at bringing in an A.J. Dillon or Clyde Edwards-Helaire. It's not going to be anything mind-blowing. It's not going to be a big-name player, but some players of that caliber, maybe a Carl Lawson on the defensive side of the ball, those type of players.
While I have you, Marcus, I just happened to be looking at the FanDuel odds this morning, the Super Bowl odds, and I noticed the Cowboys are 13-1. And I was trying to find the Packers, and I'm scrolling down. The Packers are 22-1. Can you explain this to me?
Well, I mean, the Cowboys and the Packers are both public teams, so I'm not sure that really factors into it. I do think there's some safety with the Cowboys, right? Because Dak Prescott is a proven quarterback in the regular season. I think it's pretty safe to assume that the Cowboys are going to be in the playoffs, right? I think for the Packers, their road to the playoffs might be a little bit more difficult just because I think Detroit's going to be really good again. We'll see about the other two teams in the division, but I gotta agree with you. Like, To me, I think they should both be around 16 to 17 to 1.
I kind of assume they'd both be in that like 16 to 18 to 1 range.
Yeah. The Cowboys are just high, though, every year because people love betting on the Cowboys to win the Super Bowl.
Stay up to date all year on the Dallas Cowboys by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Cowboys on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Thanks for making Locked On Sports Today your first listen. Coming up, the Titans have been on a shopping spree that would impress any mall goer. Say goodbye to busted brackets because FanDuel lets you bet on every game of the tourney. Whether you're betting on a big upset or a one seed, it's time to go dancing on America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 to use on point spreads, money lines. You can even pick who's going to win it all. The odds for who will win it all right now: UConn on top. FanDuel has the Huskies plus 480, Houston plus 650, Purdue plus 750. Then there's a pretty big gap. Arizona and Tennessee 14 to 1. Interesting value, you ask? Kentucky currently 25 to 1. The Cats, they can score on anybody. I like that one. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and bet on college hoops until they cut down the nets. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today, here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. The Indianapolis Colts are bringing in an elite backup to AR-15.
What up, Flaccos? We are here today to talk about the Colts' new backup quarterback. What's up, everybody? This is Jake Arthur from Locked On Colts. And that's right, the Colts have a new backup quarterback. Gardner Minshew is with the Raiders. Now enter Joe Flacco with the Indianapolis Colts. The Colts have reportedly locked him up to a one-year deal worth up to $8.7 million possible, $4.5 million guaranteed. Longer the days of his Super Bowl champion reign. He was a Super Bowl MVP back in the day. But since 2018, when the Ravens replaced him with Lamar Jackson, Flacco's kind of bounced around the league a little bit. But 2023, the man caught fire. He experienced a renaissance. He basically went from the couch to the postseason.
The Raiders went on a little bit of a spending spree. Christian Wilkins, now they're making some cap room.
The Raiders are expected to cut Jimmy G. There are a few teams interested. Cutting Garoppolo straight up, they'll free up about $11.269 million in immediate cap space when they cut him. Sometime today as the new league year opens up. They could split it up between 2 years if they wanted to. His dead cap hit, I don't think that they're going to do it. They're just going to eat it. So they're going to also, like I said, eat some of that dead cap money, but they'll also free up that $11.269, and they sit around $20 million in salary cap space right now.
In the association, the Heat hosted the Nuggets in their finals rematch this season.
The Heat lose to the Nuggets 100-88. They have now dropped 4 straight games. They are a game and a half out of the 6th seed, firmly now in the 8th seed. They're still 3 games back of the 4th seed, which seems like a pipe dream now with 17 games left in the season. There's so much to get to from this one, David. We talk about the three-point shooting, the latest injury update, sort of non-update regarding Tyler Hero. I do want to get to some of the silver linings from this one, specifically in regards to Bam, but we got to start with Jimmy Butler, who was a no-show in this one. You couldn't have really asked for a better way for this game to play out, right? You held Denver to 100 points. You held Nikola Jokic to 12 points. You look at those kinds of things and you would say, hey, let me give you that. Do you think that he can win this game? And you go into this and be like, yeah, absolutely. If that's the setting, I feel like the Heat would win this game, and instead they scored just 88 points. The three-point shooting was a problem, but to me the number one problem was just another Jimmy Butler no-show, and he was a reason why they've lost 3 straight games going into this one. He's a big reason why they lost this one, even though the opportunity was there. This game was there for the taking, specifically for Jimmy in the beginning of that 4th quarter, and he just couldn't get it done.
And in Major League Baseball news, the San Diego Padres won the Dylan C sweepstakes that took forever.
They know as much as I do that it was a pretty weak free agent class compared to what you might get next year. So everyone's talking about Blake Snell. I think there are 4 pitchers minimum that are better than Blake Snell that are going to be free agents next year. So I think that if there was any year for them to cut back a bit, it was this year. And instead, they do that. They make some minor moves, Yuki Matsui. They get Michael King and Drew Thorpe and Randy Vasquez, or no longer Drew Thorpe though. That they get all those guys, and you're saying, okay, they're just going to build around their young core, and then they make this move literally right before they hop on the plane to Seoul for their series and career, right? So just an amazing move. And again, I think that this is a team that next year they could be right back. They kind of can't be cheap Millard because they have the Tatis, Machado, Musgrove, Darvish, Cronenworth contracts. So like,
yeah,
they literally couldn't be cheap if they tried in a lot of ways.
For the second year in a row, the Tennessee Titans were the winner of the biggest name receiver on the market award. Last year it was DeAndre Hopkins. This year, Calvin Ridley is headed to Tennessee on a 4-year, $92 million contract, including $50 million in guarantees. Tyler Rowland from Locked On Titans joins me now. And Ty, I know that you were heavy into the Titans being in on this receiver market. They get their fish here. What do you think of the catch?
Yeah, I think it's a fantastic fit for the Titans. I know that there are some concerns with Calvin Ridley. I'm sure we'll get into those, but the Titans had a desperate need at wide receiver. And one, you need more wide receiver production to be a better team, but you're never going to know what you got in Will Levis unless you surround him with NFL quality talent. So now the Titans can say that they've done that at wide receiver. You add somebody in the mid to late rounds in this stacked wide receiver draft class. Now you got some pretty good stuff there. You move your attention to the offensive line as well. They added Lloyd Cushenberry there. So I think the Titans have to give Will Levis a realistic environment where he can succeed. And this is a huge step towards doing that. Calvin Ridley is somebody who can line up all over the formation, still has deep speed for a guy his age. He was 71% success rate against man last year, 80% success rate against zone last year. So he's had some struggles with press coverage, but he can still get open against any coverage. Great speed again for a guy his age. I think it's something that the Titans desperately needed. Calvin Ridley has it. And not only for the Titans to get Calvin Ridley while Will Levis is on a rookie contract, but to steal him away from the Jacksonville Jaguars, who overpaid Gabe Davis, in my opinion, and now have to give a third-round pick to the Atlanta Falcons for having Calvin Ridley for 1 year. Not only do you help yourself, you hurt your enemy, and that's a big-time win for the Titans.
Yeah, and it does seem like if you have concerns about press coverage with Calvin Ridley, you have a big-time guy who can be your ex-receiver, albeit at an advanced age. DeAndre Hopkins can still get open. You lock him on the backside as your ex-receiver. He can go get open. You put Calvin Ridley opposite. He can go do work. But Ridley right now, really the cherry on top of the work that they've done with this offense. Lloyd Cushenberry, the center. I know that's not going to grab the headlines, but that's still a big move for them. And then they added Tony Pollard, who before last season, the 2023 season, was being talked about top 5 kind of fantasy football back, got hurt, never quite produced. What do you make of the offensive overhaul that they have endeavored here under second-year general manager Rand Carthon?
Well, first we'll start with Tony Pollard. And look, you know, like I do, Pete, that I'm not big at giving big time money to running backs. But like I'm sure you've been talking to your fan base in Green Bay about the Josh Jacobs deal, the cap explosion, don't look at the money so much. Look at the percentage of the cap that player is taking. And now that we got the details on Tony Pollard's deal, it's 1.5% of the Titans' total cap space that they're spending on Tony Pollard. It's only $2 million dead cap to get out of it after 2 years. And you look at Pollard, he did have the broken ankle, but in the second half of the season last year, his broken tackle rate, his missed tackles forced rate went through the roof. He was a much better player, and he was still a 1,000-yard rusher last year. So you pair him with Tajay Spears, I think you have a great backfield there. Lloyd Cushenberry, one of the best pass-protecting centers in the NFL, third best pass protection grade on Pro Football Focus among centers. Last year gave up 1 sack, and it was the last game of the season, only 14 pressures. So I think you get some pass-protecting interior offensive line help with Cushenberry. I think the Titans are going to add at tackle, whether it be early in the draft, in free agency again, or both. And not only do they add Ridley, they add Pollard, they add help on the O-line, but bringing in Brian Callahan, who's an offensive-minded coach who crafted the Bengals offense the last few years, and his father, Bill Callahan, as the offensive line coach. Those are going to be big bumps for the Titans offense as well from the coaching side. So they're getting better direction, better coaching, better players. This is a huge haul for the Titans on the offensive side of the ball, and they're not done. They still have premium picks in the NFL draft to continue to add at offensive tackle and wide receiver as well. So for my sake, Pete, I don't know about winning games. I don't think the Titans are a Super Bowl contender or anything, but for watching fun football, exciting football, points being scored, the 2020s, for my sake, this is a great offseason at minimum.
Stay up to date all year on the Tennessee Titans by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Titans on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Coming up, Philly is the big winner in free agency so far. Did you know that even if you have a 401k for retirement, you can still have an IRA? Robinhood has the only IRA that gives you a 3% boost on every dollar you contribute when you subscribe to Robinhood Gold. But get this, now through April 30th, Robinhood is even boosting every single dollar you transfer in through other retirement accounts with a 3% match. That's right, no cap on the 3% match. Robinhood Gold gets you the most for your retirement thanks to their IRA with that 3% match. This offer is good through April 30th. Get started at Robinhood.com/boost. Subscription fees apply. And now for some legal info. Claim as of Q1 2024, validated by Radius Global Market Research. Investing involves risk, including loss. Limitations apply to IRAs and 401ks. 3% match requires Robinhood Gold for 1 year from the date of the first 3% match. Must keep Robinhood IRA for 5 years. The 3% matching on transfers is subject to specific terms and conditions. Robinhood IRA available to U.S. customers in good standing. Robinhood Financial LLC, member SIPC, is a registered broker-dealer. Saquon Barkley was just the beginning. Philadelphia has added quite a bit of talent early in the free agency period. That has Alex Clancy telling Tyler Rowland on a recent Locked On NFL that they are the big winners so far.
I mean, the Eagles just keep doing it. Now, here's the thing. Just like the Kirk Cousins story, this is what we see from the Eagles every year, just with different people wearing the uniforms. You haven't had the splash of Saquon Barkley. The discrepancy between offensive line play in New York and offensive line play in Philly last year was gargantuan. So the ability for him to create space or get space created for him is going to be really telling. And see, I mean, he could be the number one fantasy guy in 2024 if he's healthy. But when you look across the board, every offseason they bolster. And it's just going to be a determination on if Nick Sirianni can lead them over that next time. If Jalen Hurts can, remove himself from, the step back, mini step back in 2023, namely in the latter part of the season, and thrust themselves into the NFC Championship / Super Bowl with this, star-studded roster with A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith already there.
I'll be honest, I don't see it. I don't see it. The secondary is still a problem, even with the addition of Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. They paid Saquon Barkley a bunch of money, but anyone could run behind that offensive line and do well. You don't need to pay a premium for a running back like that. How is he differentiating himself? What is he doing that's going to be so much more impactful than DeAndre Swift? And I still am not convinced in the head coach, Nick Sirianni, the culture, the locker room. It was a mess last year. Why do I have faith in him to keep everything together? Why do I believe Jalen Hurts will be significantly better this year than he was last year with A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith and all of those guys? Jason Kelce was one of the straws that stirred the drink there. He's gone. I don't understand the hype here. They're better than they were, but they were a fraudulent team by the end of the year. They got beat by the fraudulent Bucks and embarrassed. The last month of the season, they looked like they were in total disarray. They had Matt Patricia replacing their defensive coordinator. That's a competent organization? I'm not buying it. And finally, yesterday we told you about potential vice presidential candidate Aaron Rodgers. Yes, that's a real thing. Well, within 24 hours of that report, Rodgers found out what presidential vetting by the political press looks like, with CNN reporting Rodgers told a CNN reporter back in 2013 he believed in the debunked conspiracy theory that the Sandy Hook massacre was a government conspiracy. The report said CNN also confirmed Rodgers told others he believed in these theories. Previously, Rodgers' former teammate, Deshaun Kaiser, said the four-time MVP was also a believer in 9/11 conspiracy theories. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. Coming up on the next Locked On Sports Today, will there be any surprise cuts ahead of the new league year? So at least until tomorrow, stay locked on sports today.
Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
For more episodes of Locked On Sports Today, go to our video on demand. Click on sports at the top of your screen. There, you'll find past episodes of Locked On Sports Today, plus other Locked On shows on demand.